Good morning, Calvary. We are so excited that you've been choosing to join us online. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing Pastor Bobby Van Engen, who has been attending our church for a little while, so he may look familiar to you, but he is now officially a part of our team, and we are so excited that he is. So I'm going to give you a little glimpse into him and his life and let him share a little bit about his family. So, Bobby, thank you so much for doing this, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and about your family.
Yeah, for sure. So we've been, attending Calvary. It'll be 2 years come August. We bought a house here in Peterborough. Nice and close walking distance to Costco. And so we're right here by the church, which is really nice. And for us, it's kind of like coming back home a little bit. Well, specifically for me, I grew up in Millbrook. And so I have a sister and a brother-in-law that still live there, and a brother and a sister-in-law that live there. And my parents are there as well. So coming back to Peterborough was kind of like coming home for me. And then both Kath and I went to school here as well. So Kathleen knows the area pretty well. For 4 years she was here. So it's really nice when you move to a new area, and to even a new church where we were already integrated in the church. We already know the roads. We already have family that are close, things like that. So the transition was pretty seamless for us, which was really nice. And then for me, I've always thought that it was really, really cool to be able to live and work at a church in Peterborough, just because, again, my family, I run into people that I went to elementary school with, like, all the time at the stores. And so some of the connections here, and as we work on outreach projects, like through the church, the fact that it's going to, not just my neighbors now that I'm getting to know, but to people that I've known my whole life growing up is pretty cool. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's so cool. You're like a homegrown talent.
except for the fact that Paul's always calling out Millbrook and Cavan. So anyone that's watching this from Millbrook or Cavan, I'm on your side. We'll hold strong together.
There we go. Okay, so I know you from, I went to school with you. We were at school at the same time, and then we both youth pastored in the same district, or the same section within our district. So now this is a whole new role for you. This is the first time you are, leading as a worship pastor. So why does this new position at Calvary appeal to you?
Yeah. So again, I went to school, specifically majored in youth ministry, and then was a youth pastor. Kathleen and I were for 5 years, and then came back and started actually working at the school, doing some recruiting. We've always just felt, both of us, a strong call to pastoral ministry, specifically in the church. I even remember when I was in school, like one of the first weeks, they went around and said, "Hey, why are you here? What do you think that you might be doing?" And they go around, and it's full of young adults who are saying, like, "Oh, like, I'm sick of the way the church is. Like, I want a church plan or do my own thing. Like, and I know exactly how it should look." And for some reason, even I vividly remember it, even that day, right early on in Bible college, just saying, like, I love the local church, and I feel like I maybe am called to maybe bridge a generation to also love the local church. And so no matter what I've been doing, whether it's working with teenagers or young adults, I've always just loved specifically pouring my life or my thoughts or my creative ability into empowering and helping like the local church. And so specifically in Peterborough. So I think that this new role is something that we were so excited about. For the last 2 years, we haven't been specifically working at a church. And we just always found ourselves just dreaming, thinking, planning about what specifically, because we've been here for 2 years, Calvary could look like, what a Sunday morning could look like, what we would want our neighbors to come to if we were to invite them to church. And so the role that I have here at the church, again, it's part-time worship and creative arts pastor, and then a part-time stay-at-home dad on the other half. But really, when I look at it, it's putting a lot of energy and thought into what do Sunday mornings look like here. And then that's where Kathleen's kind of part-time role kind of molds into mine a little bit too, where we both kind of get to shape when a newcomer comes into the doors, to getting them integrated, baptized, into a small group, serving, experiencing what it's like to worship with the church on Sunday morning, to like really all of those things that you would experience on a Sunday morning. And so we just love thinking about those things, dreaming about those things, and figuring out how this can be a place where people would be really comfortable to invite their neighbors, their friends, their family. And that's why I think it's cool, because I have so many family and friends already here. And so I just think of them Like, what is it that they would really enjoy? How could they experience God in a real, authentic way? How can we build up the church kind of in that way? So, and then as soon as I get into this role, then we're not even meeting on Sundays, like in live. And so I guess my job description has been a lot of video editing, and you've seen me like leading worship, a lot of solo stuff, just to figure out how these kind of things work. But again, the whole dream of just building up the church and empowering the people here at Calvary has been really, really exciting.
That's awesome. It's so cool to hear your heart behind it, because in the time that I've been able to know you guys, I can see that you guys just want to serve. You just want to serve the local church. You want to serve the people, the kingdom of God, and it's so evident in everything you guys do. So I'm super pumped that you guys are part of the team, and I know that Paul is, and I know that everyone else will be as soon as they get to know you. So we'd love to hear a little bit about your faith journey and how your journey has shaped you to who you are today.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up like so many people kind of in this context specifically, where I grew up with a bit of a church background. So I grew up at the Millbrook Christian Assembly Pentecostal Church just down the road. And my parents were key members of that church. And so we call them church rats. I was just a kid that hung out at church all the time. And I was there late. My dad's like a chit chatter. And so it was always like the pastor, the pastor's family, and then my family. And so I grew up just playing in the church, knowing where all the hiding spots were in the church. Like it was just kind of like a second home. And so I definitely grew up with that. And then again, I went to Rhema Christian School here in Peterborough. And so I was very well taught from a young age. And then it just for me in my teenage years, like, I don't know, sometimes when you look back at your teenage years, I'm not sure what to think sometimes. There was definitely some really good moments. And then I'm just not sure how serious my faith was to me, because I know that I had a moment when I was 19 and I was at university. And before I went to Bible college, I went to university to be a teacher, study biology and phys ed, two of my favorite things, anything to do with animals or farming or cows or whatever it might be. And then sports, if I could combine the two and start teaching them, that's kind of why I went in that direction. But when I was 19, I had a radical encounter with God that makes me now look back and say, wow, I think I was missing something when I was a teenager. And so that when I was 19, I just had a very real moment with God at an altar at a young adults meeting in Hamilton. And it just radically changed my life. I ended up dropping out of school. Not saying that's what God wants us all to do, but for me, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was feeling a lot of discontent in where I was. And so I ended up dropping out of school. I ended up just coming back home. And for some reason, God just kind of spoke to me, because I kept on asking the question, like, God, what is it that you want me to do? I will literally do anything. You send me anywhere, I'll go. Like, I was just in a very cool moment of life where I was saying to God, like, I give you my whole life. I just don't know what it is that you want me to do. And God specifically kind of spoke to me saying, well, just start doing the things that you already know that I've asked you to do. You grew up in the church. You've read the Bible quite a bit. Like, you know the things that you're supposed to do: serving the poor, helping the needy, getting involved in the local church, doing those types of things. You don't need to know specifically what school to go to or what job you're going to have, but you just start kind of pouring your life into the things that you already know you should be doing through the things that you've read in the Bible. And so I started doing those things, getting involved, pouring into other people's lives, teaching people the Bible, going to Bible studies for the first time in my life, and just like eating it up, and going to prayer meetings and different things like that. And then God just started to like lay things out, and it was pretty crazy. And so I had a pretty awesome 1 year right there when I was 19, where I don't think I've ever read the Bible that much in my life. There was just something spirit-led that was happening. Whenever you talk to kind of new converts or someone that starts coming to church, there's this fire for reading the Bible, or there's this passion for these things. And it's not that those necessarily go away, but there's something just so electric about it at the beginning. And I had that when I was 19 and 20, where it was just crazy what God was kind of doing in me and through me. Went on a missions trip. God kind of spoke an audible message to me. For me, I thought I was going to be a missionary maybe. Went home, didn't know what that all meant. Like, even though I did grow up in the church, I didn't really know much about being a pastor or a missionary. I didn't know that there was a school for those things even.
Right.
So, and then my pastor kind of guided me to masters, went to masters, and had 4 years where really just shaped me, and showed me what it's like to lead in a church or to lead other people or to equip them, different things like that. And so that's kind of where my journey has brought me. And then after that, I kind of got into pastoral ministry, which I just love. I've been talking so much, I forget what the original question was. My faith journey, that's what it was. And so Here I am. I think that's kind of a bit of a guidance, but for me, one of the biggest things, whenever anyone asks me that question, is that I just had this very clear moment where I said, God, just tell me what to do. And so many young people specifically have that. God, just tell me what to do. I want to serve you. I want to follow you, but they just don't know what it is that God wants them to do. And so I always just kind of encourage them with that story saying, well, just start doing what it is that you know God already wants you to do. Serving the poor, helping the needy, like serving in your local church, pouring into the next generation, finding someone that doesn't know Jesus and start teaching them things like stuff like that. And that really radically changed my life.
That's good. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's awesome. I'd love to, I'll move to the next question, but what through COVID right now, this season has been stressful for so many, an anxious time, and in a time where a lot of people have been really discouraged. So I'd love to hear, how have you been staying encouraged? How have you been staying hopeful through this season?
Yeah, so it's probably frustrating for some. I know it's frustrating for Kathleen. Like, I'm an eternal optimist. And I'm also like a super relaxed human being. So stress wise, like I don't really stay up at night stressed about kind of some things necessarily. I also have the gift of falling asleep really easily. And so I think a mixture of all of those things. This season hasn't necessarily been stressful. It's been stressful, I guess, in some ways, just a change of pace, a change of life. Like, we switched jobs. But for me, like, one of the things that I guess gives me hope, and again, if anyone's ever heard, like if I have students or anyone that's heard me speak, I pretty much say these things over and over and over again. But my favorite thing about God is that he's in the business of redeeming things. Like, I just love that. So whatever it is that comes our way that might have any negative undertones or that the enemy is trying to toss our way, I just have this like really firm belief that I know that no matter what it is that the enemy's throwing at us, that God will turn it and use it for good, use it to save lives, use it to help the local church actually get creative, use it to help my family have more time together at home. Even if sometimes we are like, man, we've spent 80 days straight with our children, like with no breaks, like different things like that. But I just have this underlying, it's a mixture between optimism, but maybe it's a mixture of faith, or maybe there's a gifting of faith in there. I don't know, but just knowing that God has done some really incredible things already, but just seeing the change that can happen in the church, the change that can happen in our city. And then just having as much empathy as I possibly can for those that are definitely having a lot harder time than me, where we have our jobs and I'm with my kids and those things. And I know that's not true for everybody. And then so trying to do as much as possible to bring hope and to bring life and to love to my neighbors or to the people in Peterborough that are definitely struggling, or the frontline workers, or whoever it might be. And so I think a mixture between knowing that God's good at redeeming things, knowing that this is just an agent for change, which is always good. And then just trying to, kind of pour that into other people that are going through kind of tougher times. I think that's always helpful. That was another lesson I think I've learned in my life, is that sometimes when we sit and we think and we worry about ourselves or what's going on in our life, and we kind of get full of, our prayers are just kind of full of these stressful prayers. As soon as we start serving other people, as soon as we start thinking about the needs of other people and pouring our thought and energy into that, sometimes our own personal worries and stresses actually get pushed to the back. And I found that true for me. Again, that sounds like an eternal optimist right there, but it just really has been. So trying to pour our energy and thought into our community, into our neighbors and stuff like that's been pretty helpful.
Yeah, that's so encouraging. Thank you for sharing that. And so our last question, we've been walking through this one, and I'm learning I'm a very boring person, but I'd love to know what your favorite Kawartha dairy ice cream flavor is.
So first of all, I am a big supporter of all things dairy because I grew up on a dairy farm. Kawartha ice cream is probably from some sort of milk from my neighbors growing up, or even our farm. So I'll always plug local milk, and I'll always plug dairy products because, man, I just love them. Yogurt, butter, everything, chocolate milk for days. So when it comes to ice cream, like I'll take it all, but probably anything with peanut butter in it. So there's like, what's that, Moose Tracks? Like I would love that.
Yep.
Or mint chocolate chip. But if I'm going to go to Kawartha, I'll probably get a milkshake of some sort. Because again,
that's my go-to.
If you have ice cream and you can add more dairy to it by putting milk in it, like that just makes it even better.
Nothing better. A good milkshake, a good like thick milkshake.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's my jam.
Bobby, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. And I know that everyone's going to be super excited to be back in the building and see how you and everyone else who's joined the team will help shape Calvary moving forward to reach the 3% of Peterborough. So thank you so much for who you are and for giving us a glimpse into your life today.
That's great. Thanks, John Mark.